Alright, how's it going? I'm That Ginger Photographer. Little bit of a different video today. I'm just going to be talking to camera like this, like we're sat in the pub opposite each other, and I'm just going to be talking about my journey and where I've came from and what it took to go into being a full-time photographer, whether it's been worth it, and I guess how I went from charging £60 and making £60 profit in my first year as a photographer to last year having my busiest ever year and earning the most money I've ever earned. And I guess just whether it was worth it or not. If that's the answer you're looking for, yeah, it was totally worth it. It was amazing and it was totally worth it. And it was hard at times, there was ups and downs, but it's always worth it. It's always worth working for yourself. So if that's the answer that you want, then you can leave now. But if you want to know more about my story and my journey, then yeah, feel free to hang about in the pub like we are. So I've been doing this for about 12, 13 years now, been full-time, coming up 6 years, or just gone 6 years, been full-time photographer for 6 years. I used to work full-time and I'd do photography on the side as a bit of a side income. I've always been registered as a business when I was doing it on the side, so everything was always declared. This is not just for the tax man in case he's watching, by the way, but I've always been registered as a business, so I feel free and happy to be talking about this openly as well. So when I first actually got a DSLR camera, my lovely girlfriend bought me it about 14, 15 years ago. Didn't have a clue what to do with it, and I was working full-time at the time, and I was attending adult education courses on an evening. So I'd work Monday to Friday, 8 till 5, and then I'd finish work on a Tuesday and Thursday, and I'd go and attend adult education courses to learn photography. As I said, I didn't have a clue what to do or how to use the camera, but it was really expensive, and I thought I need to know how to use this properly, and that's what I'd done. I'd done that for 2 or 3 years. While I was coming to the end of those 3 years learning photography, somebody that I actually worked with was getting married, and they asked me to photograph their wedding. It was actually 2.5 hours away, the drive, so I said, put me up in a room and cover my fuel, and that is it. That's all I'll want to do it. It was my first ever wedding. I was totally nervous, and I absolutely loved it. I fell in love with it, and I fell in love with photography as a career that day. And I also fell in love with photographing weddings because it is essentially a party. You've got that little half an hour where they're doing something legal, but other than that, you're attending a party for work. And that is why I still love photographing weddings, because everybody's dressed up, having a great time, and they are just there to party, and you get a witness. And this isn't a sales pitch for weddings either, but you fall in love with the whole day. Everybody's just having a great time. But going back, because that's how you tell a good story, you start at the end and then periodically go back. What's that off? What film's that off? Otherwise it'd be boring and linear. But yeah, 12 years ago, I think it was 2011, photographed my first wedding, fell in love with it, and I just thought, I want to do this for a career. I want to do this full time. But I didn't have a clue how to do that. And it took me, I think it was 7 or 8 years to actually get to the point where I went full time. And I'll come back to that. I'll come back to how I knew it was time to go full time with my photography. But back in the day when I just photographed that wedding, I delivered it. I absolutely loved it. I'll be forever grateful to that couple for taking a chance on me. Never photographed a wedding before. I'd done a bit of landscape stuff. They took a chance on one of the most important days of their lives, and it's led me to where I am now. So if you know those people in your life who also took that chance on you, yeah, you should be grateful as well. So thanks, guys, even though they're probably not watching this. But after that, what I'd done was I set up a website and I set up a Facebook page, because if you want to be a professional photographer, all you need to do is add photography at the end of your name. So that's what I did, and I created a Facebook page. I'm sorry if I've just pissed off 20,000 people. 20,000 people watch this, but I added photography at the end of my name, uploaded that Facebook page, covers, pictures, profile pictures from the only wedding that I'd shot, and I started to just really push myself. First inquiry I got, I don't know if it was on Facebook or if it was by email, they contacted me. They wanted 2 hours coverage, I think it was. Really local wedding, a small key wedding, lovely people. They got in touch and I needed to ring her back to confirm the booking, and I hated it. I am talking like my heart was pounding out my chest. I was so nervous I had to go and sit in the car. I didn't want to be around anybody at all. I called her whilst I was on my lunch break at my full-time job, because I'm still working full-time at this point. I called her on my lunch break, and it rang and she didn't answer the phone. And I was so nervous, but I was so happy that she didn't answer the phone. And if she hadn't have booked, I would not have been bothered, because it was horrible having to make that call. But it just meant that I could email her, and I emailed her instead of actually speaking to her on the phone. And she booked anyway. She booked £100 for 2 hours, and I took a deposit of £10 via cheque as well. Totally pro. And that was it. That was my first actual booking for a wedding, and again, loved it. Lovely people, thankfully. I'll give you one thing. Through my career, I have been so lucky to attract good, nice people who are just relaxed, and I think that is a big part of what you need to do when you define your style, you define your brand, and you define yourself. You need to attract the people that you want to work with, and I have been so lucky to work with people who've just been absolutely lovely. I'm just saying that in case any of them watching. I'm not, but it's just been so lovely to actually work with lovely people as well. After that wedding was done, I obviously had more content to be able to share. I started obviously offering pet photography, even though I was terrible at it. It was just another string to the bow, and it's what I thought you had to do when you became a photographer. You had to do everything. You had to offer every service. I didn't know how to do a lot of stuff, but I obviously told people I could do it because that's what I thought photographers had done. At that time, sorry, with a piece of paper. At that time, I seen photographers very defined style. Round where I lived, it was point the flash at the couple. Everybody has to be standing and smiling at the camera. That was it for the whole day. That was it on every job. I attended a course, totally changed my whole outlook, career, dynamics, brand, everything. The people in there I met were amazing. They taught me so much because we had a private group after the workshop. But that totally defined my style and my brand, and that just showed me that you could be completely different to everybody else doing photography. You'll appeal to the people that you want to work with, and it also means that you'll get the relaxed couples, and that's what that course done for me. It opened my eyes to how you can actually run a business and how you can brand yourself, because essentially you are your brand, and if you don't sell yourself how you want to be seen, people will see through the bullshit. Basically, that's the point I'm trying to make. People will see through the bullshit. And if you're trying to be somebody else on camera, like I'm obviously hilarious, so I'm being hilarious on camera. But if you are trying to be something that you're not, if you're trying to be arty and elegant, but you're not actually like that, you turn up to a wedding, however you might turn up. If you're arty and elegant, I obviously wouldn't know what you'd wear. But people will see through that, and they'll know that's not what you're really like, and it just won't work. And that's why you'll struggle as well, to be honest. I've completely gone off on a tangent there. Basically, started to get working through Facebook and through the website as well by, I can't remember how it came. By leaving my business cards in places. A business card's dead these days. They probably are. I've still got some, but they probably are dead. Work started to trickle in slowly, and when I say it trickled in, I mean it trickled in. It came in so slow, and work was months and months apart for the first couple of years. About 5 years into my career, still working full time. It got busier with weddings and with family photography as well, but I was mainly pushing weddings. And in those first 5 years, I was working full time. I was working Monday to Friday. I was shooting weddings on Saturdays and Sundays. If I had a wedding that was on a weekday, I had to use my annual leave, my holidays with work, take those days off and shoot a wedding. I was editing every night. As it came to the end of these 5-6 years, I was editing every night, Monday to Friday, shooting every weekend. I was getting up before work, finishing editing weddings. I was going out on my lunch break to post the weddings out. And that was how I lived for a good chunk of time. And then it eventually got to the point where I just couldn't do both anymore. It got to the point where I was earning in a day from a wedding what I was earning in a month from working full time. So it made sense to go full time at that point, but it was also really scary. It was something that, it's a big risk, it's a big leap of faith, and when you've got bills to pay and you've got a family and you need to put food on the table, don't get me wrong, we both work, and my partner's she's always been totally supportive. She bought me my first camera, like I said, but when you need to quit a steady, guaranteed income to then go out on your own and try and get your own work in and be sure that that work's going to keep coming in as well, it's a massive risk and it's scary. But it did get to the point where I was earning more from my photography than I was earning working 300 days a year. So it did get to the point where I just put my notice in and I left my full-time job. There was a really small period where I'd dropped Fridays or Friday afternoons. I dropped some hours at work, but it wasn't enough to drop. It wasn't enough. I needed to go full time essentially. It wasn't that I wanted to at this point. It was that I actually had to. I couldn't continue to work 24/7 as I was, and that's what they said on that. I didn't want to work 9 to 5 anymore, so now I work 24/7, and it's totally true as well. It really is, but I wouldn't swap it, and I absolutely love it. So going back again to actually going full time, when I left my full time job, the very next day I had a couple wanting to book a wedding, so I drove an hour, met them for lunch. They booked my biggest package that I had at the time, and they paid upfront in full that day. And I just thought that was a sign from the universe that I've done the right thing there. It was a Wednesday afternoon. I'd have never been able to go if I'd have still been working. This was literally the next day. They asked to meet me, and yeah, they booked and paid in full. And I just thought, if that's not a sign, then I don't know what is. I wish I had a sign to point to there, because I could have been like, that's a sign. But yeah, you get it. So that was about 6 years ago. That day that I'm talking about was about 6 years ago, and it's gone up and up from there, to be honest. It's gotten busier and busier. I've gradually increased my prices. I'm always really nervous to increase my prices because I'm happy with the clients that I get, and I'm happy with the work that I do, the weddings that I get, the commercial work that I get. I now charge 2-3 times what I charged for my first ever wedding. Per hour, not like for a wedding, like per hour. Now I cost more than what I charged for my first ever wedding, which is nuts to think about, to be honest. Like, if you're in a similar position and you're thinking about pricing as well, look at where you started and look at where you're at now, and look at what other people are charging, and you'll see people who are similar to your work and your style, and that should help you define what you should be charging. I do often get told that I'm too cheap, and that is by other photographers and by couples as well. But what I'm very wary of is I'm scared that if I put my price up too much and I go into that next bracket, I might end up trying to target couples that aren't suited to me. Like, I swear on my website and stuff, those people might be put off by that. I don't know why people would be put off by swearing, but it happens, and that's fine. But they're not my kind of couple. They're not my kind of client. So I don't want to put my prices up too much, because I don't want to be out of the price range of the couples that I actually want to work with. So that's why I'm happy with where I'm at now, and I'm doing fine. I'm more than getting by, but I'm happy with what I am. So for me, it's not about the money and only the money. The money's great, but it's also about being happy with your work as well. And that is a lesson in life from me, the ginger photographer. But yeah, be conscious that it's not only about the money. You got to be happy with your work as well, and with who you're attracting. My mouth's so dry, but you've got to be happy with who you're attracting as well. So what then happened was 5 years ago. So yeah, I must have left my job coming up to 6 years ago. I'd just gone 6 years ago. About 5 years ago, a friend rings me who I went to college with. And he attends a networking group. It's a very big American networking group, and I'm still part of it. He asked me to go because their photographer had just left. They only allow one profession from any category. And he said their photographer had left. Did I want to go and have a visit? And this is 5 years ago, and like I say, I'm still there now. I go to it, and it is the best decision I've ever made, in all honesty, in my career. Career-wise, it's the best decision I've ever made, because I joined there, and that is when it opened the doors in the world to commercial photography. And I hadn't been doing any commercial photography at all. I mean, at all, when I left my full-time job. I left the full-time job only doing wedding photography. And at that time, my full-time job paid me about 18 grand a year. When I left, my weddings brought me in about 25 to 28,000 pounds a year. And I remember that because 30,000 pounds a year was like a goal for me. Like, it'd have been amazing to hit 30 grand a year. So I got this networking group, and it's the best decision I made because it just opened a whole new world and it opened so many doors, and commercial photography is what I started to then offer. It took about 8 months from joining, but I started doing headshots and I started doing tequila shots and I started photographing food and drink and I started photographing businesses, and it really snowballed, and it's snowballed so much for the last 2 years that my commercial photography is now a separate business. That's now a limited company. That is its own entity now. And when I say about doing weddings full time, I love it. I absolutely love doing weddings full time, but it's also important not to burn out, which is what almost happened last year. And maybe it did to a degree, because what actually happened last year was I had a massive backlog from 2020, and we all know what happened in 2020. It was horrendous, and it was horrendous trying to run a full-time business when you can't go out and photograph weddings, but all you do is photograph weddings. I didn't leave the house for 8 months, and what happened during I don't want to dwell too much on this because it's not worth dwelling on, essentially, but if this helps someone, then by all means I'll happily and openly talk about it. But in 2020, I'd never had anxiety or panic attacks or anything like that before. I hadn't left the house for 8 months, and then in the September I had a job that was an hour and a half from home, and I had the biggest panic attack of my life. And because I didn't know what it was, I just thought I was going to die. I was an hour and a half from home, and it was absolutely horrendous. Haven't had one since. I'd never had anxiety before, and I haven't had it since. Like, really, probably like little touches of it, but I got over that. And if you've had one, you obviously know what it's like as well. It's absolutely horrendous. But that really shook me up and scared me. And once I found out what it was and how to deal with it, and I'd done like meditation and the first thing I'd done was speak to people and openly talked about it. And other people also experienced it, but they kept it quiet as well. And I was just like, I'm not going to be like that. I'm going to be totally open about it, because if someone else gets this and they don't know that hundreds of people around them also have it, it makes them feel worse. So I'm not going to dwell on that too much, but that's what happened to me during COVID. It was horrendous. But what COVID also done for me was it made me realize that during the summer, it is nice to have weekends off. It's nice to be off when the kids are off. It's nice for somebody to be having a barbecue on a Saturday night and be able to actually attend it. I remember the point that I'm trying to make now. So I still absolutely love weddings, and I'll still continue to photograph weddings, but I've actually decided to start blocking out weekends in the summer months, because that is something that COVID taught me. I used to work every single weekend through the summer. I'd be working, because obviously summer's the busiest time of year for wedding photographers. So I'd work all summer every single weekend, where now I've started blanking out weekends to have time off, to have time for myself. And that's just something that I've only just implemented this year, but I'm already seeing the benefits of it. I'm not close to like burnout or physically drained or mentally drained, because you've got to really look after your head as well, especially when you're self-employed and you're trying to get your own work in. As a photographer, like as a photographer and as a full-time business owner, I don't switch off. I do not stop working. I'll be honest, emails come through at 10:30 at night, 11 o'clock at night. I'll reply to them. I'll be posting 6 o'clock in the morning, 7 o'clock in the morning. It doesn't end. And as great as it is, and the money's great, but you don't stop working, because if you stop working, you stop earning. And if you stop earning, then that's when you stop working, I guess. But you've got to be really careful to look after your mental health as well. And I'm not going to go into that, because there's people who talk about it a lot better than I do. But I've started booking in weekends off for myself. Every month I've got weekends off where I won't work them, I won't take inquiries, and I won't take bookings. What I am starting to do instead though is I'm starting to push the commercial work more now, the Monday to Friday work, and that's why it's its own limited company, because that is something that I can push as a separate business now. It's not something that's just on my website under commercial. It's a completely different business name, completely separate, and it's Monday to Friday work. And that means that if I do decide to take off weddings in July, for example. I haven't done that, but if I did decide to do that one year, it'd mean I'd still have commercial work coming in Monday to Friday in that July, and I'd still be earning a living, still putting food on the table. So that's just where I'm at the minute as well. And as I say, it's got that busy with commercial work last year, and it's got that busy with weddings as well. Don't get me wrong, I don't earn the massive amounts that I earned last year every single year, but that is mainly because of it was a COVID backlog and everybody had been pushed to 2022. So in 2022, I think I shot about 55 weddings. It's nice to know that I'm starting to create time for myself again, and that's probably what I missed when I wasn't as busy. It's weird because what happens is you always want more. You look at other people, you look at the photographers, you think, oh, they're so busy, I wish I was that busy. Then you get that busy and someone else edits better than you. So I wish I edited like that. Oh, they edit better, I edit like that now. Oh, they're traveling abroad for weddings, I wish I traveled abroad for weddings. So then you start chasing that. You always want more. But when you get there, it's not everything that you think it's going to be. It's just people's highlights, clips of their life online, but you strive to that. You strive to be busier, to earn more, to travel for weddings. And then where I'm at now is I've achieved all that, and now I'm like looking at other photographers that are having time off, and I'm like, I wish I had time off. So that is just, I guess that's just a little lesson in don't always like believe someone's highlight clip that they post online. They only post the best stuff, and it's not always as great as it seems. I hope this video has like inspired someone. If you're on this journey, I hope it's helped you. I hope it's give you something to think about if you need something to think about. I hope if you've had anxiety or something at a wedding, you know it's not just you. It's not just you at all. It's more people than you think it is. But just I hope there's a takeaway from this video, basically. I hope there's something to learn about. I know it's probably been a bit long and boring for some of you, but I hope if you're on this journey of either going full-time or you've just become full-time, or maybe you're full-time and you want to be busier, step back and take a look at where you are now. And this took me a while to do as well. 5 years ago, if I knew 5 years ago where I'd be at now with a studio and a full-time business and a separate business as well, I'd be absolutely mind blown and gobsmacked. Just take a step back and think, look what you've achieved, and you'll know when it's right for you as well. If you're looking to go full-time, if you're looking to take on more work, if you're looking to travel, do it. But you'll know if it's right for you, and you'll know if it's working for you as well. And yeah, I hope you've took something away from this video anyway. If you want to see me do some street photography, which is about me keeping the passion alive, I guess. I'd done some photography that was just for me. It wasn't a case of working for a client. I just wanted to go out and get some pictures for myself. So watch this video if you want to see me try some street photography. It's harder than it looks. And I love you, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye.